Hello guys, and welcome to my new video, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that I'm genuinely worried about, and that is add-ons, more specifically add-ons for healers coming into Midnight, the next expansion, because Blizzard is basically removing a lot of capability from add-ons, which means that a lot of those add-ons are probably going to go away. Things like Cell, things like Grid 2, things like Weak Auras, they no longer have the access to determine what is going to be inside this black box, inside this secret API, so that means filtering debuffs, filtering buffs, it's going to be impossible, which in turn possibly means that those add-ons are no longer going to be usable. So what does that mean for healers? We're going to be talking about, hey, Blizzard is removing a lot of these add-ons. What are the replacements or the built-in options, and how are they feeling right now? Now keep in mind, it's looking like a lot of the add-ons might be used for skinning purposes, making things look nicer, changing the color and all those things, but in terms of proper functionality, that's all on Blizzard. So this is my Restoration Shaman on Alpha. It is one of the easier healers right now. After the pruning, there's way less auras to track, there's way less buttons to have, and we're going to talk about the cooldown manager, we're going to talk about raid frames, but first of all, I want to talk quickly about Mouseover macros. Now, if you're using add-ons like Click, it is possible that Click could survive this. So I do want to talk about the other alternatives. Blizzard has its own built-in, you'll see it here right now if you go to keybinds, and if you click on click casting, this is Blizzard's own Click. They basically copied the interface of this add-on because it was very popular, and you can actually mouse over or make keybinds for mouse over abilities. For example, I'm just going to delete some of these here, and it works okay out of the box. It actually works okay. For example, I click on add binding and I want to add, let's say I want to add chain heal, and for me I actually use right click for chain heal. I use my left and right click mouse buttons for a lot of the most important abilities, so I can just right click this and save. Now if I right click, I have chain heal, and if I want to select or open the option menu, I can alt right click to open the option menu. This works perfectly. This works very similar to what Click is. Now the issue with this is that it's very limited in terms of, if you go back into click casting, if you're using an MMO mouse, and MMO mouses usually have a lot of buttons on the side, and those buttons on the side are mapped to numpad keys. So if I want to add a binding, for example, let's find Riptide, and I want to add it to my mouse buttons, numpad 1, numpad 2, numpad 3, you cannot do that. If I want to add it, for example, I want Riptide to be usable on shift mouse wheel up, I can't do anything with mouse wheel. In terms of mouse wheel up, in terms of mouse wheel down, I can click my mouse wheel button to add it, but that's another story. So there are limitations to it. Now, to get around this, you have to make the keybinds on your action bars. So you can go into edit mode, you can click on the action bar too, you can click into quick keybind mode, and then you can add your numpad 2, numpad 3, numpad 4. You can't really add anything with mouse wheel up and mouse wheel down. You actually have to go back, you have to go into options, you have to go into action bars, and then you have to go like manually add these, find the action bar, the button associated with it, click on it, and then something like shift, again I have to go back, something like shift mouse wheel up, shift mouse wheel down, and then add a button or the mouse over macro onto the action bars to the key that you have pre-assigned with a specific keybind, which is honestly just, it's annoying, and it should be more streamlined. But I don't want to talk about it too much because there is a chance that Click add-on might still be available. Now, if you are using Cell, and if you are using the Cell keybind option, Cell is most likely not going to be functional. We'll have to see if there's going to be maybe some splitting happening. I'm not sure. Now let's look at Cooldown Manager, and this is basically your class weak aura pack built into the game itself. Now, it has improved a lot. In Alpha, it's a lot better. So for example, right now, if you go to options, if I go to gameplay enhancement, and if I click on enable cooldown manager, this is something that I set up myself right now. And it's actually very easy to set up. In order to edit this, you go into edit mode, and you'll see a bunch of things here in terms of essential cooldowns. You'll see things like utility cooldowns. You'll see things like track bars. You'll see track buffs. So if I go to essential cooldowns, and this is tracking my essential cooldowns, I can right click in terms of advanced cooldown settings, and you'll see here options for essential cooldowns in terms of, hey, I want to move my flame shock right here. Maybe I don't want Riptide. Maybe I don't want Riptide at all. I can remove it from bar. If I want to add it back up, you can see here not displayed. I can just move it It's basically drag and drop options, and I think that's actually pretty good in terms of new players coming into World of Warcraft and doing it for the first time. Now, you also can, and this is not usable right now, you can, for example, right click on your Ancestral Swiftness to have a better notification on when it's available. Right click, new alert, make a sound alert when it's available, so when it's off cooldown, and set any option right here. You can also add a text to speech. Unfortunately, it's not really working right now on alpha because this is alpha. This is very, very, very early on. So that is cool. That is nice, actually. That is way better than I anticipated. And then in terms of utility cooldowns, so what were the utility cooldowns? If you go back to the edit mode, these are my utility cooldowns. You can change how many columns there is. You can make it vertical, horizontal, which is actually not bad at all. Icon direction, icon size, icon padding, opacity, visibility. Let's talk about buffs. So if you go back, you'll notice here that you'll have track bars, and you also have things like track buffs. So I just kind of want to show you what it's going to be like. So if I press my healing stream totem, you can see here, healing stream totem, it's showing you how long it's left on it. If I'm pressing my spirit link totem, it's also showing it. If I press ascendance, it's also kind of showing it, but it's not really filling in the holes. It's not like a waterfall type of effect, but again, I'm sure I might be missing something. So if I want to alter that, you go back into edit mode, you go into track buffs, you can change the icon size, icon padding, opacity, visibility, display mode. You can only have icon if you want. You can have name only as well. You can remove the icons, which is actually not a bad start. Now you can go back to edit mode. You can click on the track bar, so track buffs, advanced cooldown settings, and then you'll see the filtering system. You can already see, again, there's a lot of things that I'm not displaying in terms of buffs. And you can already see that I tried to add a new alert for Ding, for coalescing waters, just to mess around with it. On alpha, it's not really working. And you can see all the buffs and debuffs, or more specifically buffs that I'm tracking, because we'll talk about the debuffs very soon. You can see I'm tracking Healing Tide. If you don't want to track Healing Tide as a bar, you can just move it and track it as a buff. So that's something, or it's all up to you. You can click and drag and do all those things. You can remove it. The only thing that I haven't really found is that a lot of times if I have, like, for example, Ascendance here, Healing Stream Totem at the very bottom, and if I go back and if I press my Healing Rain, you can see I'm tracking Healing Rain and I'm tracking Ascendance. There's a gap between them. I'm not sure if I can change them to make them look nicer or to fill in those gaps, and that's something that maybe I'm missing, or maybe it's going to be added in the future. The first impressions of the cooldown manager, I think it's a pretty decent start, especially for anyone who's starting to play for the first time. Now, I personally would like to have options of trying to split up these essential cooldown bars, because I like to have bars vertically and horizontally, and I like to track my big cooldowns on the vertical bar and my other smaller cooldowns on the horizontal bar, and you can't really do that. I would like a way to be, or have them split up, and the most important thing that you need to have is a debuff bar. You have all these track buffs, all these tracked utilities, but there's no way for you to track debuffs that you have on an enemy. So for example, as Resto Shaman, I want to apply Flame Shock on an enemy target. Now these are some of the new nameplates, and I'll talk a little bit about the different options. They're very basic right now. There's no proper filtering. I think that's the basic consensus. There's just no proper filtering of buffs and debuffs across the board for a lot of the features that Blizzard has implemented or has as a default feature. But first of all, I want to press, let's say for example, I can't even select it here. If I want to press Flame Shock, I can see my Flame Shock cooldown, but I can't see my Flame Shock duration outside of looking on the nameplate. And this is definitely going to be an issue for a lot of specs out there who rely on making sure how much time do I have on a debuff without having to look at 20 different debuffs on the nameplate. And that is something that needs to be implemented ASAP. A debuff bar that in my case would tell me that, hey, I have a couple of seconds left on Flame Shock cooldown, but I also have 14 seconds left on Flame Shock buff duration. I already kind of showed the new nameplates for alpha, but I want to go to different styles. So if you go to nameplates, and you'll get a bunch of options in terms of size. You can make it absolutely massive, you can make it smaller, you can change the debuff size. These are very basic. You can change the style. So right now I have the cast focus. You can change it to default, you can change it to legacy, you can change it to tin, which honestly looks very similar to legacy, and you can change it to block. You can also change the amount of information is being shown on the nameplate. You can add health percentages. The cast bar animation or information is kind of good because it also adds, you can add spell target right now. Blizzard is most likely removing the targeted spells weak aura, so we'll have to see how that's gonna turn out. And outside of that, you can change in terms of enemy NPC buffs and debuffs. In terms, you can actually delete them if you want. You can add shared CC. The only problem with all of this is that you have no options in terms of filtering. Zero filtering in terms of which buffs you want to show or which debuffs you want to show or hide. And again, filtering is somewhat of an issue when it comes to these built-in features. And now let's talk about the big one, and that is raid frames, party frames, healer related add-ons. Now, first of all, add-ons like Cell, Grid 2 and stuff like that, I talked about at the start of the video, are most likely going away because they just can't see the information that they need to see in order to filter debuffs, in order to filter buffs. They might be able to, again, a lot of the add-ons might be able to add customizable options, skinning and stuff like that, but there's just a lot of limitations. So you most likely will be stuck with using the default Blizzard frames. And I know this is alpha, and I know there's a lot of players who use the default Blizzard frames and they have fun with it. And it's, if you're a new player coming into World of Warcraft, or even if you're someone who's been playing for a while, you can't get used to it. Now, I'm using Resto Druid here for a specific reason, because Resto Druid still has a decent amount of HOTS. Don't get me wrong, there is pruning, there's a lot of HOTS that are gone, but look at this. So this is my Resto Druid. If I want to add the Rejuvenation, Germination, if I want to add Life Bloom, if I want to track my Wild Growth HOT, you literally can't do that. You have 3 buffs that you're able to track right now. Yeah, like, there is a limit on how many buffs you're tracking. There's a limit on how many debuffs you're tracking. There is no or zero filtering in terms of, hey, I want to really make sure I can see, for example, Life Bloom, because Life Bloom, Resto Druid has so much emphasis with with Apex talents and all that. With Life Bloom, I really want to know it. You can't really add extra emphasis. You can't change the size. You can't change the location. There is zero customization with, okay, I shouldn't say zero, because you can go onto party frames, right click it, and you can change the frame width, you can change the frame height, you can use horizontal layout, you can use the vertical layout, and you can display borders. Of course, you also have the option to go into raid frame settings, and you have a little bit more customization here in terms of displaying incoming heals, displaying power bars if you want. You can display aggro highlights, display pets. You can also display only dispellable debuffs, which again, at least they give you an option for this, which is pretty nice. And then you can change the display health text in order to show how much health is remaining, or how much health is lost, or health percentage. So very basic. So there is no okay, it's not zero customization, but honestly, if this add-on, let's say for example Blizzard exported default Blizzard frames and put it on CurseForge, do you think this add-on would compete with the likes of Cell, Grid 2 and a bunch of other things out there? This add-on would die when you compare it to a lot of other things that are available. There is, again, I don't want to get worked up too much. I know I like to be mad at a lot of things and things like that, but it is alpha, it is early on, there's still a lot of time left. But the default frames right now, as it stands, especially if you're someone who's been using Cell or Grid 2, or there's tons of good add-ons out there. If you've been using those add-ons, if you like to change the location of your buffs, if you like to change the location of your debuffs, for example, even absorbs are not really shown properly on default frames. They just show this kind of blue line at the end, and you don't even know what the true value of the absorb is, which honestly can be a pretty big deal breaker if you're playing something like Discipline, or if you're doing some absorb trinkets or whatever. Just to showcase exactly what I mean, now this is alpha, this is my Discipline Priest, and I know on retail, the people that are using Blizzard default frames, they might be using add-ons on top of it to add additional functionality. This is the vanilla Blizzard frames. And if I, for example, apply a shield, you have this like little tiny blue bar. Essentially, I have a 12,000 shield and my HP is 53,000. And the only way to highlight this absorb is to have this tiny blue shield, which needs to be improved upon. So there is a lot of work for these raid frames to be, how do I say, even match a percentage of customization than what you have in the market right now. Now, I'm fully aware there's going to be a lot of players who probably been using raid frames for a long time and they're good for them. Like, if you're not playing Resto Druid, or if you're not playing some healers that need to track a lot of things, you're probably fine. If you're playing Resto Shaman, you only have to track a couple of things. I'm just saying that the customization should be added. I'm very scared about this because I like to have options. Like, for example, if a person has a certain debuff, I would like to change the color of the whole frame, so I know exactly what debuff that is. You can't really do that. For example, this is what I mean about changing colors based on buffs and debuffs. This is my grid 2 profile. You can do that in Cell and all the other things. You can't do that with the default Blizzard raid frames. I want to have, at a quick glance, know which people have certain buffs, debuffs. In this example, Atonement. I want to know which people have Atonement, and my frames change to green to indicate that this person has Atonement. That means that my damaging abilities are going to heal them and that there should be fine if there's going to be big AoE. I want to have options like this because these things make your life as a healer far easier depending on which spec you're playing. My honest suggestion is this. I think Blizzard has... Again, people are saying that the expansion is out in February. There's no confirmation about this. Let's say 4 or 5 months before the next expansion comes out. My honest suggestion is, why not just hire these people who make Cell, hire these people who make LVUI, hire these people who make weak auras. I'm not talking about the weak auras that solve raid bosses for you. I'm talking about weak auras that are used for your class UIs. You hire these people and you give them all the resources to basically, for example, if you look at the edit mode is basically a copy of LVUI in terms of the customization and all those things, but it's just very, very limited. If you created edit mode that is more similar to LVUI, that has better performance than LVUI because you're giving them all the resources, I don't think people are going to be all that scared about add-ons disappearing. If you hire people, for example, Cell and stuff like that, to make raid frames, to add additional customization, because I think Cell is one of the best things about Cell, in my honest opinion, is going to be the fact that it's so user friendly. It's so easy to use. If they add a fraction of what those add-ons have through the help of those add-on developers, people would be far less scared about add-ons disappearing, especially healers. I don't think Blizzard realizes how important raid and party frames are for healers. You spend most of your time looking at these, tracking, seeing important debuffs, and you want to customize that stuff. You want to make sure, like, I can tell you right now, I've gotten so many messages from healers telling me I'm not healing next season if I have to use the default raid frames, because I'm so used to doing with the current profile I have, with where the buffs and debuffs are placed right now. I have everything set up. Blizzard needs to be aware that raid frames for healers are honestly more important than they think. So first of all, this is alpha and anything can change, and I'm hoping there's going to be much more further changes. But what I'm seeing right now in terms of all the things that Blizzard has added, there might be good for a beginner player coming into World of Warcraft for the first time, but if you're someone who's an avid editor of add-ons, these options are nowhere close to being good enough. And I know some people are going to listen to this and they're going to be like, hey, MadSkillz wants these weak or as powerful add-ons that play the game for him and all those things, which is as far from the truth as you can get, because I absolutely hate weak aura bosses. I absolutely hate having to configure weak auras for mythic raiding, making sure everyone has the latest versions. I am extremely happy that that portion of the game is gone. All I want is extra customization and filtering from the base UI. And we can't forget about accessibility. I honestly could make a video all by itself around this topic. I'm just hoping, because Blizzard is limiting a lot of these add-ons, is that they're going to create or mimic some of the accessibility features that these add-ons provided and allow the players with disabilities to play this game. But this is alpha. I'm giving my feedback in terms of things to add, in terms of things to improve, in terms of the cooldown manager, in terms of the raid frames, the nameplates. I still have to test a little bit more in terms of click or in terms of the keybind option that Blizzard has. I'm hoping that some of these are going to be taken into consideration. And if you have any suggestions, please leave your comments below or address them in Blizzard forums, because this is a big deal, especially for healers. Thank you for watching this video. If you like it, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video.